Orange team.
Hey guys, I'm Bob.
I'm Mike.
And this is the Board Game Rundown, and today we're going to review Splendor Duel by Space Cowboys. I am a huge fan of Splendor, and they finally came out with just a two-person specific version of it, and spoiler alert, I kind of like it.
Yeah, also a fan of Splendor, and I probably have played Splendor the most at 2 players.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, me too. Yeah.
So excited to be able to play and review this one.
Yeah. So we're going to go over a brief overview of how the game is played. Then we'll talk about the components and give some of our final thoughts. And at the end, we will give it a score, and we'll go from there.
And if you like our videos, make sure you like, subscribe. We're doing all kinds of reviews, top 10s, now live streams, unboxings, and we give away games as well. So that subscription will remind you when that happens.
Yeah.
So how's this play, Bob?
So in Splendor Duel, you and your bestie are going to be playing. It's pretty much like normal Splendor, except they have addition of a spatial awareness. So, Mike, if you want to put that little board up there.
Yeah, this guy.
Yeah. So instead of having the normal stacks of chips that we're going to be taking chips from, one of the main things you're going to be doing is taking chips off that board in like up to 3 in like a row or a diagonal. And so on your turn, you're going to have the option to do a couple of things. You can use some of your privilege scrolls that you have a chance to earn to take just a random chip of your choice that's not gold. You can do the pearls or the normal gems. Then you have the option to replenish the board. So say, as people keep buying and taking chips off there, as they start buying the jewel cards, those chips will go back into the bag, and then you'll be able to replenish that board with more, and that'll give you more options as you go to take more chips. However, every time you replenish, your opponent will get a privilege scroll, which they'll be able to spend on their turn. So after you choose whether to do one of those two things or not, you have to take one of 3 mandatory actions. You can either take up to 3 gems off the board, and they either have to be like in a row or in a diagonal, at least connecting. So like 1, 2, or 3, that would be a valid move. You could also take a gold chip off of there and reserve a card, just kind of like you would in the original Splendor, right? You could reserve a card and take a gold. That's the only way to take the gold ones off of there. Or you could spend some of the chips you have to purchase one of the jewel cards that are available. One of the unique things about the jewel cards in this one is not only, they'll have the normal jewels on there, but they have like wilds now. So you can I'm going to show that one over there. Some of the jewels will have like all 5 gems on there, and you get to pick what kind of gem you would like to use that as, which is kind of neat. They also have different actions on them. They'll have like different icons, and some of them let you like take an extra turn after this one, take an extra token that matches that color, take a privilege, or take a chip from an opponent. Like lots of different types of icons and special abilities that you can get just by taking cards. One of the other things that some of these cards have on them is some of them are worth more than 1 jewel, right? So that one's worth 2 blues. So you have that one, and now it's like having 2 blues with just 1 card. So that's pretty neat. There are also crowns. And the crowns are important because whereas in the original Splendor, some of them would want like, have like 4 of this color or 3 of this color. All the nobles are earned through these crowns. So as you hit 3 crowns, you'll be able to choose your first one, and then as you hit 6 crowns, you get to choose your second one. So you only ever really get to choose 2 nobles. And you're going to continue to play until either one person hits 20 victory points total. That's the victory points are in the flags at the top. Somebody earns 10 crowns. Once you have 10 crowns, that wins. Or if you have 10 points of the same color, not just 10 of the same color, but like, I have this 3 on this black plus a 2 on the black, and if that adds up to 10, that's a way to win. So there's 3 different ways to win in this one as opposed to the original. But I do really like the spatial element that it does add to it. But as the majority of the gameplay, there is a little small thing, like where if you take 3 chips of the same color, your opponent gets a privilege scroll. If you manage to take both of the pearls, because there are only 2 pearls available, if you take them both in one grab, your opponent will get to a privilege scroll. And you can spend as many privilege scrolls as you want during your turn, but it has to be the first thing you do on your turn. And that basically sums up gameplay. Let's roll into components. So the components for this game are really nice. So the cards are a little bit smaller, so it's a little bit smaller footprint. But the addition of this board and the spatial awareness, like the spatial element of it, I think is really neat. And I think that'll get some people who didn't typically like the normal Splendor to like kind of give it a shot. You're like, oh, that's a cool little element. Let's try that out, right? And like it's cool because then like trying to I'm gonna refill the board because I know there's only a couple of chips in there and I can put those chips because you have to start in the center and you spiral out. So if you want to clear some of those chips off there and kind of show them the little spiral pattern on there, it tells you like in what order you have to fill that board in. So as you continue to take the chips, when you go to replenish them, you start in the center and you kind of work your way out, filling in the gaps as you go. And the chips are super nice. They're the same kind of quality as the original Splendor is, but they're smaller. And that's fine because it's just dual. It's just the two of you.
Yeah, because this comes in a much smaller box.
It is.
It actually comes in a box that is suitable for the size of the game, which original Splendor is not.
Yeah, it's a bit big for what it is.
But the box size for this is perfect, and I think so is the price point. And if you increase the size of the chips, the price goes up, and so does the box size. Yeah. So I think they're perfect.
Yep, yeah, I think it was done well. And the insert is actually really good. I'm not sure what you did with the insert at the moment, but it's really nice. There's a spot for each of your privilege tokens.
I love the way that
they lay in there. Yeah. Yeah, that's super neat. And then like a spot for like the cards all lay in there.
Yeah, everything's got a spot. It is a great insert.
Yeah.
You don't need baggies.
Nope. Then like all the chips will go in that bag and go into the big reservoir there, and then the scorecard and the board folds up, goes over the top. Put your rule book over there, and it all closes up really nice. Yeah, it's a really great little insert.
Yeah, I don't have any complaints about the components. I mean, I actually was talking to Bob about how I prefer this art.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
It's kind of a little cartoony, and I kind of like that because the original art I thought was a little too serious for what the game was. Like, not that it's bad art,
right?
It's just like it's so serious, and it's these guys intensely staring at this gem, and you know, and it's like this is a little more cheeky, which I think better fits a lighter game.
Yeah, I mean, and it does like recycle some of the art a little bit, but like I think like the gems in the crown are a different color, so it's like slightly different. It's kind of almost like a what's that? Century Golem edition, whereas like it's kind of like the same basic art, but then they change the color of some of the things there depending on what the card is for.
But yeah, definitely the star of this though is that board when you talk about components. I mean, just the way that you're pulling the chips from that board. We'll dive more into that on Final Thoughts, but this board is such a cool new puzzle, and so it is the most important mechanic and component of the game. So that's, to me, the biggest thing. And these little plastic privilege tokens are amazing. I like those quite a bit. If I can get one on the, there you go.
There you go.
So,
hard to see that way, but yeah,
it's got a good little heft to it. These are nice little tokens. So
one of the neat things too is on that board, if you notice, you put it back up there one more time, on the side it does have the breakdown of like the things I was talking about where if you get 2 pearls, your opponent gets a privilege token. If you take 3 of the same, you get a privilege token. And or if you replenish as a hand with a bag, they get a privilege token. So it's just a reminder there of when you have to give out those tokens to people. And one of the other neat things too is like somebody's hoarding those privilege tokens, and if you do something to earn one, you take one from them. You know, they can't just sit there and hog them all day. It's like, oh, you have all 3? Well, I just did something to earn me one. Give it. You know. So I like that.
Yep. So that covers components.
Yeah. As we go into some final thoughts. So, Mike, what are your final thoughts on this?
Sure. So, again, I'm going to pull up this board because this board is just so fascinating, man, because it starts with you got a full slate of chips over here. But as you start pulling more stuff out, you know, as you're pulling off more of these chips, less and less options become available to you. And it's not just like the regular game of Splendor where you just have a set supply of tokens.
Right, you're taking 1 or 2.
You're still capped at 10. Sometimes you're only taking 2 tokens or sometimes 1 because it's not, you don't have the option of being able to grab 3 on your turn. So refilling this thing is so interesting because also I got to stress this because when you spend those gems to buy the cards, they're going in this bag. Okay, they are not going back into the general supply. Then you have to, on your turn, force it to refresh. And I love how that makes a timing dynamic to this game.
Right. You're like,
Splendor, normal Splendor, there isn't much of a timing dynamic other than, okay, maybe I'll wait another round and I can reserve this card later. But this timing mechanism here, when you're deciding when to reset the board, because all the chips are going in here. If they're all gone from there, you have to reset the board to get them back. And you don't want to do that. You don't want to give the other guy a scroll.
Yeah.
So there's one time I was looking at Bob and I'm like, okay, well, I could only take one chip or I could refresh. I'm taking one chip. You refresh that bag and give me that scroll. And I love the way that worked. That added so much more to the base game of Splendor that I was just really, really impressed with how that board works.
Yeah, like, one of my favorite things about it is the how a lot of the jewel cards now have the special abilities on them. So it's like, oh, well, that card, I don't really need another black, but it has an extra take a free action. So I might as well spend my turn. I'll go ahead and take that one. Now I get to take another turn because that has that icon on there for me to take an extra turn. And the rule book does have a very nice breakdown on the back. You want to put that over there, where it gives you a breakdown on the optional things you can do on your turn, the things you have to do on your turn, and then it has a breakdown of what each of the icons on the cards mean. And that's super helpful. It's not like you really need it too much because it's like when you look at the icon, it's like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. It's got a little hand grabbing it. That means you're going to grab a thing. Oh, it's got a scroll on it. Yeah, you're going to give your opponent a scroll. So it makes sense once you know what it is, but it is handy to have it listed right there on the back, so I can appreciate that.
I was just going to add, if you like Splendor, you're going to like this.
Yes.
I don't think there's any question.
Yep.
I think this improves on original Splendor in every way.
Agreed.
So I don't really have a lot of cons. We both like Splendor.
Yep.
The components are still good. The gameplay is still great. Yeah, it's a solid game.
It's a solid game. And I really think that, like Dan's not a huge Splendor fan, but I'm going to try to get him to play this because I know he likes, spatial types of things, puzzles and stuff like that. And I think that board might be enough to be like, you know what? That game's not garbage.
Tell him. He's sitting right over there.
He's sitting over there, yeah. It's a good game, Dan.
The spatial puzzle on this board is really cool.
It is. But that's most of my final thoughts too. Like I said, like that there's 3 different ways that you can win. It's not just first one to 15. I played it probably 3 or 4 times now, and every single time it's like if I didn't win, somebody else is going to win the next turn. Or Spencer was about to win, I had to counter draft and take the card that he was going to take to win. That put him back 2 turns, which lets me win a turn later. And like man, it's been so tight every time I played it. It's very well balanced. So let's go ahead and go into our final score then. So, Mike, how do we go about scoring games on the Board Game Rundown?
We are each going to give it a score. We're going to average them together. That'll be our Board Game Rundown score, which is interesting because it's only 2 of us, so it can be swayed a lot easier this way.
Sure.
But that one score is what we share on Discord, Board Game Geek, and elsewhere.
I'm gonna bust out the calculator just in case.
Just in case? Yeah. All right. I'll go ahead and give my score first. Sure. I give Original Splendor an 8. It's a game that's in my top 50. It's one of my most played games of all time. I've played it more than 50 times now, and I just like the simple engine building that game offers.
Yes.
This game adds to that. It's got the scrolls, and it's got that board, and it's got different ways to trigger the end game that are all better in every way. And like we had said earlier, most of my games of Splendor have been 2-player, and I would rather play this version every time I play 2-player. So I'm giving this an 8.5. I think it is solid. If you like Splendor,
you will like this.
You will definitely like this game.
Yep. I pretty much agree with you, but I'm going to have to, I give Splendor an 8, and I would really like to give this an 8.5. But most of my Splendor's been played on the app, and on the app it has the colorblind assist, right? So so it makes it a lot easier to tell the reds and greens apart. Twice now when I've been playing this, I've been taking green chips and then realizing, oh my gosh, those are red chips. So I have to dock at that half point and put it back down where the original Splendor is at an 8. So it's going to be an 8 for me. But I do really love this game. I think it's much better mechanically and with everything else involved. I just wish it was just they are different shapes. So paying a little bit closer attention. They're slightly different shape. But man, I just wish I wish there was something else on there, either just little etches on the side or some hash marks on it or something like that to distinguish them a little bit, easier for those of us that can't really distinguish those reds and greens apart.
I see it. Those just look like clumps There's not major discerning features around the outside that you can say that shape looks different than the other.
Right.
If you're just looking at shapes.
But otherwise, it'd be a total 8.5 for me. But because of that, and because of my inability to distinguish those apart, I'm going to give it the 8. So,
you've always done that, so that's not a new thing to Bob's scoring
correct.
system.
So I mean, it's I think this day and age, that's something that's so common now. It should be considered. You know,
I agree.
Yeah. So if we took both of our scores and you average them together, 8.3. It's pretty good. That's solid. I didn't read the calculator. Score. Yeah. I kind of like with the 2 people. That's kind of makes it a lot easier.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so Splendor Duel. It's a great recommend. Check it out. It's worth it. The price point's amazing. It's worth it. So
it is, absolutely.
Yeah, so from the Board Game Rundown, I've been Bob.
I'm Mike.
And thanks for watching.